Hey everybody, my name is Zach Batty. Welcome to this episode of 5 Questions in 10 Minutes. Thanks very much for joining us. We've got a return guest host. Thomas Black is with us. Thomas, how you doing today?
Hey, Zach, I'm doing great. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. Preseason's over. We're into where people are writing with ink now.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm so happy to be done with the preseason. You know, football is made for the regular season, and I'm ready to get to regular season games. So week one with the NFL coming up, there's nothing better than that. So I'm extremely excited to be done with all the potential injuries and things that have gone on with the preseason, ready to get to some regular season games that will determine playoff matchups a few months from now.
Perfect. Well, let's get started with the questions then. First of all, first question this week, what game do you have your eye on?
Zach, I think this week there are a couple possible matchups. You know, late on Sunday, you have the New England Patriots and the Arizona Cardinals playing against each other. That might be the matchup I'd be looking at if it weren't for the Tom Brady suspension to start off the season. I just can't be as intrigued by that one as I normally would be. So the game I'm looking at goes to Thursday night with the Carolina Panthers visiting the Denver Broncos in a rematch of Super Bowl 50.
Okay, I've been hearing a lot about this one. Any grudge matches there?
Well, obviously, you had a lot of things that went on in Super Bowl 50. There was a lot of talk going in that the Carolina Panthers were going to take care of business and win their first Super Bowl, but it was Von Miller and the defense of the Denver Broncos that was dominant. So I think just the fact that you get that rematch, the fact that there may be something of a grudge match or a chip on the shoulder of the Carolina Panthers, I think is something to look out for in this game. You know, you had Cam Newton in the post-game press conference throwing a fit and kind of walking off stage. A lot of debate was made about that in the offseason. And so you have all those factors, I think, playing into week one's matchup on Thursday night. I think that's going to be a fun reason to look at this game.
Yep, absolutely. Who's going to have the play of the game?
You know, I think I have to look to Cam Newton. I think with the revenge factor that is on the side of the Carolina Panthers, you look at what Cam Newton has coming into this game. He had some fumbles in the Super Bowl. Von Miller got after him. The Broncos defense sacked him a bunch of times, and that was really costly to the Panthers in losing that game by a couple of touchdowns. So you come into this one, I think revenge factor, the motivation is on the side of the Panthers, and then you mix that with the fact that Cam Newton gets a big-time target and Kelvin Benjamin back from a torn ACL a year ago. I think that's going to be a big reason why Cam Newton is the difference maker in this game, and I think the Carolina Panthers get some revenge.
Okay, we'll be keeping an eye on him. What's going to be the biggest shock of the game?
I think the biggest shock, you've got to look at Kelvin Benjamin. When you go back to what he did 2 seasons ago as a rookie, he had over 1,000 yards receiving. He was a tremendous threat for Cam Newton. You go into last season, he tore his ACL before the season ever began. A lot of people wrote the Panthers off before the season ever started because without Kelvin Benjamin, they figured Cam Newton, without his number one target, was going to have some struggles. Instead, he goes to Greg Olsen. He has some other players around him, some weapons that helped him get through the season. The Panthers go 15-1. They had a great year, but now you add Kelvin Benjamin back to that offensive attack, and I think that he's going to be a player to watch out for, somebody that should not be forgotten just because he was out with an ACL injury last year.
Have you been impressed with him in the preseason?
I haven't seen a lot of him, honestly, in the preseason. I haven't seen Kelvin Benjamin a whole lot. I know he's been out there a little bit. I know he's had some receptions, but I have not seen the Panthers a lot in the preseason. So just the fact of what I've heard coming out of the Panthers camp, knowing that he's healthy, knowing that he's ready to go, knowing that he had that entire year off last season, I expect big things from Kelvin Benjamin this year. He already had that great season as a rookie, and I anticipate nothing but more from him coming up in 2016.
Okay, very interesting. As always, we're going to take a quick break right here. And for those of you listening, I just want to share 2 stats with you. First of all, around 120,000 games are downloaded every day. And those generate about $1.5 million in revenue. That's every single day. Second stat, 90% of Americans consider themselves sports fans. If you put those things together, there's a lot of business opportunity there. If you haven't heard of United Games yet, then you need to take 5 seconds right now and click on the link in the show notes, or you can text 801-896-4149. What United Games is doing is they're developing the next thing to take over the sports and gaming industry. They've got an app that lets you play along with your favorite football, and they're also launching with a soccer version of it, so that while you're watching, you can interact real time with the game. So this isn't fantasy football. This is predicting play by play, drive by drive, what's going to happen. Now, you can either sign up for free as a player. This will let you, again, play real time, earn points, have fun, even win some free stuff. Or you can sign up as an affiliate, which allows you to invite other people and get paid for spreading the word and telling your friends to download a free app and play along with their favorite sports games. So it's pretty exciting. Either way, whatever you're interested in, you need to click on the link in the show notes, or you can text 801-896-4149, and we'll send you some information, some link that you can click on. Thomas, let's get back to the conversation. Who's going to win? Who's going to win this game?
I have to go with the Carolina Panthers in this one, Zach. I talked a lot about the revenge factor. Coming off of the Super Bowl, I think there's going to be a lot of reasons to point towards the Panthers winning. I mean, frankly, you look at last year's matchup in the Super Bowl, and the Carolina Panthers outgained the Denver Broncos in yards. It was the turnovers that ultimately made the difference. You flip that to the side of the Denver Broncos. They have Trevor Siemian starting at quarterback. He's never made a start in the NFL. Heck, he's only had one snap that he's taken, and that was a kneel down. He hasn't ever attempted or completed a pass in the NFL. And so you go up against Luke Kuechly and the defense that the Carolina Panthers have. I think that's going to be a challenge for Trevor Siemian and what the Broncos have. So in this one, I don't think there's any way to avoid thinking that the Denver Broncos are going to have a hard time moving the ball offensively. I've got to go with the Panthers. I'll go with the Panthers by a couple of scores.
So I take it in your tone of voice that you're trying to be a little conservative here. You're looking for a blowout, aren't you?
I'm not necessarily looking for a blowout. You know, the Denver Broncos have enough of defense. They showed that in the Super Bowl. They showed all that last season, that the Panthers could be limited in what they do offensively. But let's face it, too, the Panthers had an extremely dynamic offense last season, so they should be able to put up some points. I think starting off week one, offenses may not quite be in sync. Kelvin Benjamin, a guy that I mentioned as a big factor in this game, I don't know that he's going to be quite in sync with Cam Newton in week one. But as you get things started, I think you have to look for the Panthers to win this one, maybe something like 24-10. Maybe it gets worse than that, but I do think the Panthers win this one relatively comfortably.
Okay, perfect. Well, in about 48 hours, we'll know how accurate you are. What's the story in the news right now that you want to talk about?
Well, you know, we talked last week in the preseason with a lot of injuries going down. There's suspensions in the beginning of this season, and as we see some key players out. I mentioned Tom Brady out with the New England Patriots. You've seen the injuries pop up with Tony Romo and Teddy Bridgewater at quarterbacks in different cities around the NFL. So I think those are, unfortunately, some of the storylines that are going to get kicked off with the NFL season. That's something that's going to have to be paid attention to. You can see somebody like a Dak Prescott maybe come up in Dallas and do some tremendous things. But unfortunately, I do think suspensions and injuries are going to be one of the main storylines as we begin week one in the NFL.
Do you think Tom Brady's getting what's coming to him, or do you think it's unfair?
I think it's unfair. You know, when you look at Tom Brady, ultimately the NFL has defined that if there's any tampering with footballs, I believe the maximum penalty is supposed to be something like $25,000. And so ultimately, Roger Goodell and company, they made a decision to suspend Tom Brady because he didn't cooperate, because maybe he lied. Ultimately, I do think that Tom Brady knew what was going on with the footballs, but I think the penalty's unjust. I think he was justifiable in fighting it. Frankly, I was sick of the situation. I was sick of hearing about it. But I do think that Tom Brady had certainly an argument on his side of things. So I don't think the penalty is just. But frankly, I'm glad that it's getting started. I'm glad that 4 weeks from now, his suspension will be over with and we can move on from Deflategate, which happened a couple of years ago. And we've been talking about it ever since.
Yeah, you think in 4 weeks it's going to be done and done?
Well, you know, you'll have some commentary about it the first couple of weeks he comes back. If you turn on a New England Patriots game, the commentary will be surrounding Tom Brady and what they looked like in the 4 games without him and what they look like now. So I think there will be some commentary that goes along with it for a few weeks, maybe after the suspension ends. But ultimately, once that happens, I think it's done with. I think it's in the past. And I think that'll be something that's better for the NFL.
Sounds good. Thomas, it's always a pleasure talking football with you. Hope you've got a great week coming up.
Thanks so much, Zach. It was great to be with you. I hope you have a great week as well.